Okay. Welcome everybody to the September meeting of our Venues, Events and Marketing Committee. Welcome all. Welcome to members of the public joining us on the live stream. I'm going to move straight into our first item, which is item 285/20, declarations of any disclosable pecuniary interest. I'm happy to receive any declarations at this stage or as we arrive at an item. Do any members have any items to declare?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Silence is golden. That's wonderful. So we're going to move swiftly on to item 286/20, which is to receive absence apologies for absence. I've received one which is from the vice chairperson, which is Councillor Barretto. Unfortunately, her husband's not too well, so we send our best wishes to her husband, Joe. Do we have any others, Chris?
Yes, I've got one from Councillor Hollis, and I've got one from Dennis Crawford, who's got a family urgent problem, and he might be in later.
Great stuff. Okay, well, I hope that gets resolved as soon as possible.
Chris, I wouldn't record Councillor Hollis's because she's not on this committee.
Oh.
So I would just record Councillor Crawford.
Well, that's quite correct. She stepped away from the committee, I think, a couple of months ago. So quite correct. Thank you, David. We are moving swiftly. So item 288/20 is to receive the health and safety report. I'm going to hand over to you, David. Oh no, I've jumped an item. How keen am I? I do apologise, colleagues.
Yeah.
It's almost like I've got another engagement to go to. Item 287/20 is to receive the minutes. So I'll just go through those page by page, if that's okay. Page 1. Page 2. Please put your hand up if you want to address an item. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Move the minutes. Again, I'm going to take silence as agreement. So thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremy. So David, we now jump to the item 288/20, which is health and safety, to receive the report.
Okay, so I circulated an earlier committee report that hopefully everybody received, which highlighted a recent meeting with our external H&S consultant Colin Donnelly from Ellis Whittam. So he met with the town clerk, deputy town clerk, Councillor Harvey, and myself. Just to run through the processes that have been put in place in terms of the venues to tackle COVID-19. And we went through the various different signage, cleaning protocols. At the time he visited, we had very few returning hires in the building. I think there was only one, in fact. So we talked about the processes that we'd put in place to allow that to happen. The only issue that he did make a reservation about was the bar area, but as I explained to him, at that time there were very little activity that was due in the bar area. We have looked at what we would need to do if we were to reopen the bar. We've got costs, we've got a plan to put in place all the protocols that we need. We ran through that with Colin. He was quite happy, and clearly we wouldn't do anything until that was in place. So he actually gave us a fairly glowing report. There was nothing that he thought that we needed to address any more than that. And he was quite pleased overall how we communicated the information down to all staff and visitors. So it was quite encouraging. I don't know whether Councillor Harvey's got anything to add on that.
Chris?
Hi. No, I was. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was really impressed. I mean, we were all social distance. We sat round, and I think congratulations should be given to David and his team for how efficient and safe that environment is. They really put a lot of effort into making it
secure with this COVID thing going on. So it's really impressive. It was easy to be a health and safety officer at that meeting, to be honest.
I echo Chris's comments, actually, that having seen the efforts that have gone in to make it as secure as possible in these difficult times. Does anybody else? Oh, Councillor Jamie. Yes, Terry.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, David, for the report, and I was really pleased to get it in good time because there's quite a lot of information there, so I actually had time to read it, which I always appreciate. As Chris says, sort of good news really from the health and safety consultant. There's sort of good news all around on sort of health and safety, which is good given the current circumstances. Where are we at with masks in town council public buildings, David? Because there is so much variety out there at the moment in what buildings you can and can't wear face masks in. Are we clear on what the procedure is for town council buildings, Carnegie, Guildhall, that sort of thing? Because people are going to start coming back now, sessional hirers, and I know through other places, this is the one that seems to be catching people out a lot when they shouldn't be wearing masks. I came in the other day, as you know, because I spoke to you, and I was like, I better take the mask. That's always the default at the moment. Do I wear it the whole time? Do I not? Yeah, just wondered where we're at with that particular one.
So it is it's a difficult area to keep abreast of all the guidelines. Things change quite quickly. Funny enough, we, Alan Yore and myself, were going through some information today to make sure we were up to date. Blood donors are actually in the building at the moment, and all the staff are wearing masks when they cross communal areas, because blood donors are a particular hirer that uses the internal reception desk. So when people with appointments for blood donation arrive, they come through into the second internal door. They're asked a series of questions, and then they move into the main hall if they successfully answer those questions in the right way. So the decision that we made was to keep all staff wearing masks if they cross those areas. So as soon as we come down from the offices and move into the bar and front foyer, we have to wear masks if we're going to pick photocopying up in reception area. If we are at the moment within our office environment, which is COVID secure, we've got safety screens, we've moved desks to allow social safe distancing, we currently aren't. But we're looking at probably as soon as we walk into the building, to be honest, Terry, we are going to have to start wearing masks because we move around the building so much. We talk to people at different times. We have visitors in and things like that. So just as a safe precaution, I think as soon as we enter the building, we are going to have to wear masks. I was looking at the guidelines, though, and it does say, let me just read them again. When you don't need to wear a face mask covering, it actually says this includes, but not limited to. There is an element that says employees of indoor settings. Now, again, it's always a little bit ambiguous, really. It's out open to interpretation. But I think if we're going to veer on the side of safety, I think that's our next step. That when we come into the building, we'll have to wear face masks.
Can I say something?
Can you put your Mark? Yes, you can. But can you put your hands up in the chat when you want to speak? Thank you.
Well, I'd like to, but I can't. I'd have to take my hands off the steering wheel, and I might crash. And I'd have to blame you then, Chair.
Okay. Well, Councillor Taylor, before you go any further, can I check if you're on hands free, please?
Well, I'd call. Well, are you a policeman?
Can you answer the question, please? Because are you on hands?
I don't answer the question. I'm a councillor and it's an old man. I'm not a dickhead.
Councillor Taylor, there's no need for that language. I'm just wanting to check that you're using a hands-free device while participating in this meeting.
Well, I'm not selling you.
Well, then I'm going to, Chris, if Councillor Chris,
have you got the power to do what you think you're going to do?
Yeah, Chris.
Is that me, Chris Crimmen?
Well, yes, it is. And David, I'm looking for an officer steer on this. I've asked a legitimate question because it's obvious to everyone that Councillor Taylor's driving, and I just want to check for health and safety reasons that he's actually on a hands-free kit. Now he's actually refusing to answer the question. So, on
Are you the health and safety police now?
just for a moment, so I can finish the sentence. Can we just, if I need to, I'll mute the conversation. But I just want to make sure that the meeting. I welcome Councillor Taylor's engagement, but I want to make sure it's safe. And then if it's not, then I don't see how Councillor Taylor, regrettably, can participate in the meeting if he's not on a hands-free kit.
Yeah, you said I wasn't on a hand.
I just asked you a question, Councillor Taylor. So if you just want
I
to
answered the question, but I didn't say I wasn't on one.
Councillor Taylor, you didn't give an answer. So have you pulled over now so we can hear your question or your comment? We seem to have lost Councillor Taylor. So we have Councillor Harvey wishing to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Regarding the hands-free, I think you're quite right. If he has not using the hands-free, then don't let him talk. But my question is to do with David. Do we have, as well as masks, other staff have visors? So those with difficulties can wear visors instead of masks?
We do have visors because some of the work team in certain situations are using visors. So we have got we've got the option of a visor or mask. I know sometimes, especially to sit all day long in an environment, it is uncomfortable, but so they've got the choice of a visor if need be.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is anybody else has any questions? Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add, David, please?
No, I'm happy with that. Is there for everybody else's?
Thank you, and you're already addressing the comments of Councillor Jeremy. So thank you for that, everybody. Right, I'm going to move you on to item 289/20. This is the discussion piece. It come about from a piece of work that I initiated, then worked with the VEM officer, and that was to develop a forward plan for the committee. And the idea being, there are projects that have sat around and for whatever reason they haven't been realised. So we've worked together to develop a plan for when items will be fed into our agenda, and they've been, they're not set in stone. But the idea is, if they're strung out over the course of a year, that gives the officer time to prepare the reports in a timely manner to bring them forward for our consideration. And obviously, it's a working, living document, and it's there to also to be the input is welcome from members of the committee. I'm not going to say too much more than that. I don't know if you want to add anything, David, before it's opened out to colleagues.
No, apart from the fact that you can see there's a couple of months that has nothing allocated to it, so it is open to discussion. And if there is variations in what you see in the document in front of you, then again, that's open to discussion. What I would say personally is, if you look at the plan for the 14th of October and the 18th of November, I would ask if we could bring forward capital projects in favour of moving venue hire waiver policy. I think the importance of the waiver policy under the current circumstances is not imminent. We can address that in November, but capital projects, I think there are certain capital projects we need to look at. So maybe we could bring that forward a month, but that's open to councillors.
Okay. So I've got Terry next.
Thank you, Chairman. Always very happy to see forward planning. I think it helps us as councillors, but also officers. I'll caveat that by saying that as much as a plan is useful, obviously things do change. There's things that come up. If we had a forward plan, I bet it didn't have COVID on it this time last year. So there's always a need to change occasionally. I wondered, David, if we might be able to insert either under the meeting date column or another column the deadline by which members could request agenda items. I know at county level there's the date of the meeting, but then members are told what the date is for the publication of the agenda and the papers, and therefore what time they would need to ask for an agenda item or raise anything about the meeting, just so that we know in advance what the sort of procedure is leading up to the actual meeting date. That might be helpful, just a suggestion.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
David, I think what would be useful, because I'm very keen that our agenda's driven by the committee members, but it'd be useful if we just had this as an item to note on our agendas going forward, and it would keep a regular refresh for everybody of what's coming up and provoke thought ahead of meetings. I'm not sure if everyone's in agreement with that idea.
Okay, well, I think the normal process usually is for chair and with the agreement of the chair, vice chair, which is what we do, Mark, and also the officer, to sort of look at the possible agenda items as an initial draft. Do you want me to widen that out? So when I approach you to say, we've got these kind of agenda items that I think we should be talking about, should we send it out to the rest of the committee? Because we usually do that about 10 days before, which gives us 3 days grace before we have to put the final agenda together and actually publish the agenda.
I won't want to break with the way chairs and officers normally work, but what I'm suggesting, the document you got on the screen now should be an item to note on the agendas anyway.
Okay.
And it will trigger, as a working document, it's in there, and as discussions come up during meetings, it's a document available to all to feed items in at a relevant place where we can address the item and give it discuss its full merits or not, as the case may be. So I would just have it. I would have it as an item. As for members, feeding in agenda items, it'd be useful for them to know when you and I, roughly what time of the month we're having that conversation around agenda setting. So that, and I should imagine Terry appreciates deadlines more than anybody else, running the local publication. And similarly, there's a deadline to setting agendas for us guys. So the question I would ask is, how late in the month can a colleague request an item so we can put it onto the agenda to give Chris the opportunity to publish it to the public?
Well, if you take today as an example, we have a statutory duty to publish that on Thursday last. So Wednesday would be the absolute final day, but I would probably take that back to the Monday. So you've got 10 days. So
it's 5 working days, isn't it, to publish an agenda publicly? So to be fair to you guys, really you need about 8 working days, depending on the weight of work. If the agenda items are discussion, then that's fine. But if it requires a report, that's quite a tight turnaround, isn't it? So common sense will prevail, I'm sure.
And would you like this as a standard item each month, Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
As long as our members are in agreement with that.
Yep, I'm happy. That all sounds fine to me.
No problem.
Thank you. Is that Stuart?
No, that was me.
Oh, okay. It's a good impression of Stuart.
I keep forgetting to tell you who I am, yeah.
Oh, to be fair, Chris, I'm trying to forget.
All right. I'm going to do a Mark Taylor then and drive off.
Brilliant. Okay. Is there...
So just the final comment, Mark. So is everybody happy to pull capital projects forward a month? Simply because I'm not saying we deal with all the capital projects, but what we can do in October is actually create a schedule similar to this in when we do address these projects. So again, it's just not something that's sitting there in the ether. Is actually a schedule and a deadline and a date.
Yes, please. It makes sense to me. Again, happy if everybody else is happy with that.
Yeah, happy with that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you all. That's going to move us on to item 290/20, which is the marketing report. We're going to receive an update. Is that from yourself or Tom? David?
We're gonna let Tom as he wrote the report to give an update on that. I think it was circulated prior to the meeting anyway, but I'll give Tom his 5-minute fame.
Thank you. Away you go, Tom. Are you there, Tom? David?
Can you not hear Tom?
I'm not muted.
Thank you. Okay, so is Tom having technical difficulties, David?
Testing.
Brilliant. We can all hear you now, Tim. The floor's yours. Tom,
Tim.
sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry.
Right. It's good I get another attempt at that. So the marketing report went out with the documents, which I'm sure you've all seen. We had a couple of offline events that took place in King's House Gardens, which I think were pretty successful events for us. You know, good opportunities to get back into things, and it's very helpful stuff to be able to market us as well. To be able to sort of advertise that we've got things going on, even though it's not in a usual capacity thanks to the pandemic. We've seen some pretty high spikes in interest as well, mainly around the Oliver Twist performance. So we got quite a lot of traction from that, largely thanks to being shared by all the actors and stuff who are in that performance. What I've been also working on recently regarding marketing is making sure the marketplace itself is more visible than it has been in the past. And I've done a short write-up on advertising the marketplace as well, where I've been I was explaining the stuff I've done in the past, where we have advertised whenever a new market has come along to the marketplace, and those always do relatively well. People are always interested to see what's happening on the marketplace. Alongside that, I've been adding our marketplace to alternative online databases. So there are several online databases used for marketplaces in particular, usually farmers markets, but trade markets as well, which are just generally used for making us easier to find for both traders and for anyone who would be looking to attend. So one of the key ones is the marketpeople.com, which should be up now. You'll be able to find it on that database. And we've already had one hire come through that. I will say one hire, so one person declaring interest, which is not actually on this document because it came out after I made the document. But we also had a website called Add to Event, which is one I used to use before I started working for the town council. And we've received three different cases of interest from potential market hirers who have all said that they'd be interested in coming to the market to trade. So this is all very promising stuff. And on top of that, the posting about the marketplace on our regular social media has proven fruitful as well, because we're having other traders show interest from that, namely a local one called Delivery Suite, who found us through Instagram. Other than that, everything is pretty steady in terms of the marketing. It's gradually on the way up, and we are planning more stuff to continue bolstering us despite the continued pandemic.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to open that up to any questions or comments. Sorry, is that your hand up? I'm just checking. Oh, yes, it is. Thank you.
Sorry, Chairman, I was typing hands up. You probably got me moving. Okay, so I'm just checking my notes. Thank you, Tom, for your update there. As with the previous item, I actually always like your reports because they're quite full of detail and information, and I am a bit of an information person. I like to read up about stuff, which is good. Obviously really pleased to see the sort of increase in interactions and new likes and shares and all of that sort of stuff. It always still baffles me, but it's good that the town council is out there and has a presence, and I'm really pleased about Instagram. That one still baffles me even more, but you've given us an example there where Instagram has resulted in somebody making human contact, not just through cyberspace, so that's really good. I was just wondering, reading the report that you sent, whether we actually have a marketing plan or a marketing strategy, because I think a yearly plan linking with our events program, okay, it's not quite a program at the moment because of everything that's going on, that we just might actually be a bit more strategic. There are two organisations in Thetford who I would say the Town Council does not engage with when it comes to marketing. One of them is Leaping Hare, and one of them I do have an interest in. It's the About Thetford magazine, which is my business. But, you know, that's the only publication that goes to every house in Thetford, and we would love to work more with the Town Council. And you could incorporate that into a plan. Some of it is around social media, some of it is around website, but we can't forget, you know, those organisations in the town. One of them, you know, Link Up Talking newspaper. Yes, it's quite a niche demographic, but how do we engage with the local organisations, not just your Facebook, your Twitters, and your Instagrams and that sort of thing? What we're doing in terms of marketing for other forms of media?
So in terms of, so I'll answer that one. In terms of a marketing strategy, we are putting that together at the moment. You know, unfortunately, these current times give us a little bit more time to focus on these kind of things where we should have probably spent more time on it before. So I'm actually going through, and it is your marketing campaign strategy, but it also gives the marketing guys, if you like, clear targets of how many posts we should be looking to do, which areas should we be focusing on. We have a room upstairs in the Guildhall that was vacated when the art gallery left. We're going to turn that into a little media suite. We're having really good success with videos, etc. So video podcasts and audio podcasts are another thing that we're looking in. But yes, in terms of Councillor Jeremy's suggestion in working with other groups, we need to clearly make sure that we tick all the boxes, and that's what a marketing strategy is. So it may be once we get our ideas together, we can share that amongst the councillors. Doesn't have to wait to the next meeting. We could probably get together and do that. And then maybe we bring those other parties in, not just Leaping Hare or About Thetford, but all the other groups as well that we, and try and think of a way that we can finally tie those links together. It all comes down to cost sometimes. In other times it doesn't. It's all about sending traffic through to various different areas as well, so we benefit each other. So yeah, but just to allay your fears or suggestions, we are looking at that at this very moment. So again, hopefully in a week's time, I can share those initial thoughts with those councillors who are interested to take it further. Clearly, the chair and Councillor Jeremy would be involved. If there's any other councillor that wants to, great. And then maybe we can then take it to the other parties as well, who might be interested in engaging with us, and we'll certainly be interested in engaging with them. So hopefully we're moving in the right direction. I don't know what people have got.
I've got Councillor Stewart. Hello, Stewart. Your hand's up. Hi, Stewart.
I'm here. It's just I'm on a different tablet today, so the microphone's not quite working.
Keep taking the medication.
Yeah. No, I welcome the idea of us developing this marketing side to the various other channels. You know, I think we need to build up the ideas of what are we actually marketing? Are we marketing just the town council events? Are we just marketing town council venue events? So obviously other parties come in and we want to promote them because we want them to be successful, so they book with us again. And then there's obviously all the civic things that we need to promote, and there isn't one answer. And Terry's right, you know, the About Thetford's the only place that goes to every house, I think. But we do have a tourist information centre, which is a point of call for people visiting town and local people wanting to inquire about things going on. It's difficult because you don't want to duplicate what other people are doing, but you do really need to have a really single point of contact where everything does go through, so that you can just tap into it rather than having to search, 3 or 4 different places to find out what's going on. So I do welcome this piece of work, and hopefully I can feed into it in due course.
Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, I think actually it's a welcome conversation actually, because I think what Councillor Jeremy's highlighting, if you look at the report, it's very much an online strategy, and he's highlighting in tandem with that we need to develop the offline or enhance it. Going forward, David, I'm going to suggest by all means please share the marketing document with all the committee, and I would hope that we could bring it back at the next meeting.
If I can just come in on that. I understand the marketing report is all online stuff, and the reason for that is the online stuff is the only thing I can truly quantify in terms of reach and the successes of it. Offline stuff, we certainly do plenty of that. We've been putting stuff in the rotunda out the front, and on the top of the high street, as well as advertising in various other places. Prior to the pandemic, we took posters down to Leaping Hare every time events were on and putting them wherever we could. But of course, you can't put a number on how many people saw that or how many extra tickets were gained from that and so on. So that's a lot hard for me to put in any sort of report. No,
Tom, just to sort of hopefully give you some comfort, people often mix up marketing and sales. They're two very different disciplines, and I totally accept that offline it's going to be pretty difficult to measure the offline marketing, and I wouldn't expect to see the figures that you're putting in for the social media engagement in the offline. But if you look at the report as it is at the moment, there's no information regarding the offline function. I'm sure it's going on, but there's no information going on behind it, and the two should run in tandem. The other thing I would like to see coming forward, actually, we used to, as a committee, I'm not sure where it fell off, but we used to have, as a committee, as an item every meeting, receive an update on the events coming up. So I would like to reinstigate that, actually. So we're getting the events coming up for the next quarter and the strategies behind the marketing on that, an overview as well, because I think that was quite a useful item when we had that. Terry, I got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can hear me. I've got a plane going overhead. So, thanks for the response to that, David and Tom. I do appreciate your comments. I was just going to ask about HODs specifically. I mean, years gone by, we've been very involved in HODs, but obviously this year it's a bit scaled down with everything that's going on. I noticed on Facebook, I think it was the Town Council Facebook, the leaflet design was shared, and I just wondered if we went ahead and printed those, and if we're distributing them, bearing in mind the comments about not being too online heavy, and also generally how we're promoting HODs, because we've made a huge deal of it last year. I think it was last year. I've seen much less about it this year, even though lots of things aren't happening in person, there are still things happening virtually. So where are we at with HODs specifically?
So the HODs poster that you saw wasn't actually printed. It was just an online campaign. It was done through HODs sort of central, if you like. So it was on their national website, regional websites, etc. It is a difficult year. We can't really compare it to last year because of the restrictions. In fact, I think there is only one event in the Baptist Church. I think it's the Baptist Church that is still physically going ahead. Everything else has been cancelled. So the atomic bomb site tours and things like that are not going ahead. So it's a bit of a difficult one really to compare it to this year. Again, that used to be coordinated by, I think it was by Leaping Hare actually, before they relinquished that and the council took over. But we always do throw open the idea of through HODs that anybody can get involved, and HODs do take a lead on promotion. You have to do it in a certain way. Yeah, so HODS is a bit of a difficult one this year. There is things going on. We will show virtual stuff. We will show videos, but it's not a physical thing this year. Can I also just say, just going back to Stuart's point about a tourist information centre, we need to go through the tourist information centre. I agree and disagree, and I disagree in terms of what we need to do within our strategy is have a whole coordinated approach, because people will come into our town and land at different car parks, for instance. So they could park at the back of Winners Bingo, and the first real attraction that they see is Dad's Army, or in fact the Guildhall in the future. So the Guildhall needs to talk about what is on offer in the town. But for further information, there is a tourist information centre in the High Street, and pinpoint that. But I think everybody needs to have an understanding. We did talk about this town ambassador scheme, and I think that's again something collectively we can probably look at and promote and develop. So again, you know, it is right that we try and push them as the tourist information centre, but it's not the be all and end all of it. Everybody has to play their part, and we all need to know what that part is.
Chair, just to point out, it's Chris Crimmen here, that Dennis Crawford, Councillor Crawford, has joined the meeting.
Thank you. Hello?
Got a hand up from Councillor Jeremy.
You're on mute, Mark.
It's me on mute. I do apologise, colleagues. We had Sturt and Terry.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back on David's point. Yes, David, I totally agree. Not everywhere is going to be open at any one point in time, so we did in a coordinated way going forward. And I think, you know, this is where Thetford Tourism Heritage Partnership come back into it, promoting the ancient house, Leaping Hare, talking with us and getting this coordinated approach, you know, of things that are happening. And I think we just need to get around the table and start talking about it.
Terry?
Yeah, thank you. 2 points, just agree with Stuart's point there around marketing. There is no one form of marketing that suits everybody. Even with the magazine, it might go through everybody's door, but you know, there are an awful lot of people who probably pick it up and put it straight in the bin. But they might read social media, or they might listen to the radio, or, you know, with marketing, there's no one main way. So I think it's important that we do use a number of different techniques and engage with as many partners as we can. I was just a bit confused about HODS, because I've just managed to get up the Town Council Facebook, and the HODS leaflet is on there, and it talks about events, physical events and dates being given. Are you saying, David, that all of them, apart from the Baptist Church one, is actually cancelled now? I mean, I was hoping to go to a couple myself. You know, as the conservation ones particularly, that Mark was doing. I thought I might learn something. But is none of the HODS stuff actually happening? Because we don't seem to have posted on Facebook to say that it's not happening.
No, you are right, but it is a very late cancellation. In terms of Mark Webster's events, we have learned very late that the actual tutor for the botanic drawing event actually has been she's had to go into the hospital. So again, we've had to call that one off at very late. So I think I've just given the nod to Tom to try and get that information out there quickly, because we need to make people understand. I know Mark is going to be there just in case people turn up without having seen the online stuff, but it has been a very, very late cancellation on some of those events.
Okay. All right. So yeah, all of that. It's just it goes back to the need to have a marketing strategy, because HODS is the same month every year. I thought, you know, it's not a criticism. I thought the HODS stuff went out very late. It was on September the 4th. I actively looked at it in August when I was doing the September magazine. We're fairly desperate for content at the moment, and I'd have happily put in the details for free in the September edition. Probably a good job I didn't now if it's not happening. But it's a good thing for us to plan each year. Hodds is has really taken off the last few years, and we want to make sure that we're, involved and putting stuff on where we can.
Thank you all. I don't have anybody else's hands up, so in summary, as I understand it, the marketing strategy plan is going to be circulated to all members of the committee. Was that over the next week, David?
Yes, it's in sort of development at the moment. So I reckon 7 days. Yeah, we'll get it circulated to committee. Yes.
Fantastic. And ideally, rather than have a plethora and a long email chain, we can discuss that at the next meeting. And I wonder if we could reinstigate again the item where we get quarterly update on forthcoming events at committee. So we know what's coming up. I know colleagues are keen to do their bit and promote what we've got coming forward as well and support venues and events. So we can reinstigate that as an item. I for one would appreciate that. Is there anything else we need to add before we move on? Well, I'm enjoying the silence, so I am going to move the item on. Thank you all for a good debate. That moves us on to item 291/20, which is the weekly markets, and we've got 3 bullet points against this. Marketing and ideas to discuss. We might just have covered some ground already. Terms and conditions of the trading review and market pitch fees for 2021/22. Review, discuss and agree. David, do you have a particular order you would like to run through those items?
No, we can take them in those orders. I think the first item was an agenda item brought by Councillor Jeremy, so it's over to Terry on that one.
The floor is yours.
Lovely, thank you very much. It's just a crazy idea I had, which I wanted to float. I must confess, I'm one of those people, I do try to go and support the market when I can, but we're all busy, and I end up doing my shopping in Tesco's at 10 o'clock at night like everybody else, I think. I happened to be free a couple of weeks ago, and I went down on a Tuesday, and my meeting was in town, and I thought, well, I haven't got to rush home, so I did walk around the market. And I came across the stall that does vodka, funny enough, and gin and jam and that sort of thing. And I was really pleasantly surprised that we had such, it's very sort of on trend at the moment, sort of flavoured gins, flavoured vodkas, that sort of thing. I shouldn't be surprised that we have good stalls, but I was genuinely surprised. And the customer service I got from the guy on the stall was really good. We had a really good chat with him. He told me how it's all made, and I was genuinely impressed. And so I posted about it on social media, and several people messaged me asking for more information because, those sort of things are quite artisan and, as I say, very popular. And I'm sure other people have been down there as a result. And it just made me think that I would really like us as a town council to do more to promote our market traders. It's quite difficult at the moment. So I just wondered if we might be able to implement a sort of trader of the month scheme where we pick a particular trader. It could be based on that particular month, what might be appropriate if it's Easter or run up to Christmas or whatever. And actually have a real focus on highlighting their story, as in like a case study or a profile, some of the products that they sell. So I'm thinking social media and website are the obvious ones, because as Tom says, they're quick and easy and free. But also we do have access as a council to several notice boards around town. They're not full, we can put more stuff in them. And also our mayor has been leading the way with videos and his little interviews with them. And I love the whole idea of interviewing, Mark interviewing a market trader each month, and, them talking about why they're a market trader and what they offer, and, generating some interest that way. So it's just a couple of very quick practical things to do to promote market traders, basically, is what I wanted to suggest.
Dennis, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think Terry's idea is a very good one, and we should look forward to it. I happened to be on the market yesterday, and when I go down there, which is fairly often, I always talk to all the market people. And I think this is the first time I've been down there, and every single one of them was happy with what's happening and how things are. And some of them were saying their takings are up since this virus went on, which surprised me, but you know, and we do need to push it. I think I'm right in saying that we've got some more market stalls coming our way, and we're going to get a bit crowded on that market soon. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, we've got quite a few inquiries. I took another inquiry today that they're really keen to attend the market. And the good thing is, traditionally, when we've had inquiries, they tend to be Tuesday because there's not much options for traders to go to other markets. On a Saturday, it's different. All the big towns have big markets. But some of the inquiries that we're receiving are actually asking for Tuesday and Saturday, but also on Saturday, which is really, really encouraging. The problem that we've got at the moment is because we've had to restrict the market space a little bit with the Harris fencing for the refurbishments, which is likely to continue a little bit further into this year with the external works about to start. We are, it's typical that we get lots of inquiries, but our traders are really keen to make it work, and I like Terry's ideas, and I go back to walking around the market with yourself, Chair, when you were making your videos. You will also realise that day some are very reticent to be on camera, but we need to encourage them in the right way. The guy that you alluded to, the jam guy, as we talk about, is Dave, and actually he would be front and center to go on camera. He's a real character, and he travels up from Essex to come to our market, which again should be told that people travel. So we talked earlier about potential of these video podcasts, so we could have a video podcast of our market traders. So again, I like the Trader of the Week or Trader of the Month, so we'll definitely try and introduce that. But going back to Tuesday, I walked around the market with Emma, our market supervisor, on Tuesday, talking to the traders, saying we've got more stall holders that want to come along. Can we just rejig your stall, tweak the size of it a little bit to get more people in? And there wasn't a negative comment amongst them. So I think we've got a time now where we really need to step up, and I think we'll get the buy-in from the traders as well. So again, that's another action point for us.
I'm just going to come in there. I think we are back in a trend actually. I've spoken in the last few weeks to 2 new traders, and then we got another 4 to join, and they're all bringing something slightly different. So I think it's testament actually to the work that David, Tom are doing. So, heartfelt well done on that. We're quite right to market the markets, their Tuesday and Saturday markets, but they also should be part of a bigger offer. We have 4 other businesses on that marketplace, and we're currently refurbishing our Guildhall tea rooms, and that put together is quite a significant package for that area, particularly when most of our most recent retail developments been to the southern end of the town. So anything that helps drive footfall for the businesses that are at the northern end of the King Street, all the better. But I support that we market and we promote the markets, with some of the ideas that have already been identified, but they are part of a bigger package as well around the marketplace and the Guildhall. Does anybody? I haven't got any more hands up.
Yeah, I do. Sure.
Is that you, Dennis? I do apologise.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Difficult, I know. Just to come back on what's been said. I mean, it's been brilliant ideas. As we're getting rather crowded up on the car parking area and everything, we've discussed in the past moving some of the markets down onto the apron of the Carnegie rooms, and I'm just wondering if we might be an idea in the near future to do that, because if we're getting 3, 4, 5 more stalls, that would be the ideal thing, is to put, you know, a group down there and then advertise it and post it, and maybe even give those stalls who move down there an opportunity to go down there and maybe have a few free weeks store holding in order to get people used to it, because it is a move that has some risk if people don't move down there. But I mean, I'm willing to stand on the market and point people down there if we need to, everything. But you know, it's nice to see the market growing, and we really do need to encourage this growth, because as Terry said, we're bucking the trend, and let's keep going on it. Thank you.
Would you like to come back for that? I'm sure that's something you would look at operationally, David, as the market grows.
I think Tom wants to comment on that, so I'll leave that one to Tom.
Yeah, just to regarding Dennis's comments, I do agree that moving stuff down there and making it work is, you know, that's something to aim for in the future. But it's as it's been discussed relatively recently, it's definitely the sort of thing that you need to make sure you do it in all one go. If you just move a couple of traders down there, you end up isolating them and also diluting the main market. But we are in a position where you can theoretically move 5 traders down there and even like a food van, and essentially making a secondary market that works in tandem. So I definitely think that's something we can look into.
So, David, linking into the previous item where we're all going to get sight of the marketing strategy plan, I'm assuming this would be a strand within.
This would be a strand within, and also we want to extend that to what we've talked about in the past. And I know it's difficult at the moment, everything's difficult at the moment, but we talked about the marketplace not just being a market for produce, but also a social space. I mean, the outside seating for Wetherspoons has worked reasonably well. Certainly on a Tuesday, they actually are integrated into the market. So again, I think they're looking to possibly, you know, try and extend that. Again, we could be having an outside space with the Guildhall Tea Room when it's up and running, but we should have, you know, maybe we should have music. Maybe, you know, we should encourage buskers to come up to the market rather than down the town centre or something like that. So we create a bit of life and vibrancy around the space. So again, we can certainly write that into the strategy.
Okay, so that come through as part of that. I've got no further hands back, but I'm going to offer the opportunity to Terry as he brought the item forward, and just see if he's got any further comments before we close the item out.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm happy with everything that's been discussed. I'd like to think this sort of Trader of the Month is something that we can crack on with fairly quickly. David suggested there's a couple of individuals that would make very good guinea pigs, if you like, for the first few months. Obviously, it's a key time being the run up to Christmas, and see how it goes, and that can help inform the wider strategy moving forward. But it would be lovely to get the ball rolling on this.
Brilliant, thank you. I don't have any other comments, so I think we're all going to look forward to reading this strategy plan next week, or at some point in the not too distant future. Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to the second strut of this item, which is the terms and conditions of the trading review. I'm going to hand over to you, David.
Okay, well, just looking, I mean, the third sub-item is market pitch fees. So annually, our terms of reference requires us to look at a review of the fees, but not wanting to preempt those discussions at this point. I would just like to raise the terms and conditions and an element of it within, which is part of section 4, which is tolls. So forget about the pitch fees. I think at the moment we are one of only a very, very few councils that include our waste disposal service within our pitch fees. And when you think about it, it only is relevant to 2 traders. Currently, the fruit and veg stalls on both Tuesdays and Saturday markets, and the fishmonger on a Saturday and a Tuesday. They're the only 2 that really use our waste bins, but they do dispose of quite a bit of waste. It costs us about £1,250 a year for our waste disposal in reference to the markets. So I'm just proposing that we look at not trying to have a uniform fee for all markets when they're not utilising the system, to say that there's an additional charge. We charge additional fees for electric hookups and what's the other one? I can't remember what the other one is, but we could have an additional fee within the terms and conditions of trading, that if they require the waste disposal service, then they pay a fee, and I've put in there £10 per market visit, because it is an expensive item. I'm not really wanting to go down the line of other markets where we've just said, look, we don't do that, take your waste back and dispose of it how you can. So this is just a proposal from me, that if we are looking at fees, let's look at this as well before we get to the next section of reviewing the actual pitch fees. I hope that makes sense. I got a bit tongue-tied there.
Okay, do we have any comments, please? Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, David. Just a couple of points. The cost of £1,250, if it's not many traders using it, using that service, that's quite a significant increase. I mean, I'm not sure. I assume it's sort of 2 or 3 traders, so that's £600 or £400 a year increase. I'm just wondering if you can sort of elaborate on the breakdown of what this means in financial terms for those traders that are using that service. I mean, as a matter of principle, yes, I think that traders who use additional services should be paying for those additional services rather than a flat rate. That's just my view on the sort of charging. But what does it mean in practical terms for those individuals? Are they going to see a huge increase? And I just wonder if we've actually asked them, because what I really don't want to do is to agree to put fees up for some, which would then mean that they stop coming. Because the last thing I want to do at the moment as a councillor is do anything to hinder the market being successful. But I don't know if this is something the traders would happily accept because it's the norm elsewhere. That's what we're being suggested. Or if this means actually they up sticks and go elsewhere. So I would want to be clear on the implications of what I'm voting for. My gut at the moment tells me just to leave everything as it is. But if you tell me otherwise, that a consultation has said that actually we will accept this, then it's an easy decision to make.
So outside the 2 traders, which, as I said, are the fruit and veg and the fishmongers, it doesn't really affect anybody else because they don't use the waste bins. So really, we just have to consult with those 2 traders that if we were to charge. What I can say is those traders at other markets have faced the situation for a few years now in certain towns where they've had to they've had to take away the waste that they've generated by being on the market away because the bins are not there to use. My worry is that at times, do they use our bins from other markets? I don't know. I can't prove it. I haven't, I'm not sure whether they do or they don't. But so I think we've got 2 options. We either go down that route of other towns and say we don't provide that service, or we try and recoup some of the cost, which would be focused on those 2 that actually need the service, so we're not penalising anybody else, or we just go with the status quo because the situation is a bit, difficult at the moment, and address it at a future date.
Sturt.
Yeah, I think Terry picked up most of the points really. Hate to lose what are really key anchor market stalls that we would want to keep so that others can build upon their presence. It's right. I think we need to have the conversation with them to see what their reaction would be if we do impose a charge. But I wouldn't want to upset the apple cart and lose those 2 stalls as a result of putting this in. I accept that what they're saying, David, it is a cost to us and those 2 benefit from it. But at the same time, it's sometimes we have to bear a little bit of cost to keep things going. But let's have a conversation with them before we do anything.
Okay, happy with that.
So you happy with that steer, David, at this stage, to have the conversation and report back?
Yeah, I'll go to those two traders over the next week and give them the the steer that we're looking into it and just trying to garner their thoughts. I know the fruit and veg on Saturday 3 years ago there was a town that they visit in the north of the county that did away with the waste disposal. They never left that town. They've continued to trade. But I'm not sure whether they're not using us as the waste disposal service. But there you go. They are two very long-standing traders. One has been with us for 30 years and one's been with us for 25 years. So I appreciate what the councillors are saying, and I'll have the conversation and report back to you.
Thank you. And then that brings us on to your final item, which is the market pitch fees to review, discuss and agree. And you've set out 4 options for councillors to consider.
So basically it's in our terms of reference that we need to address this every year, and it's timely that we do this at this moment because it forms part of our forecast budget for next year. So the options are to keep the status quo and the additional services, obviously waste disposal, raise pitch fees by 10%. We haven't raised pitch fees for 3 years. We did it 4 years ago, and then prior to that, there was a period of about 2 to 3 years where we didn't again. We introduced the waste collection service, which we've discussed, so we can disregard that for the minute, or we just implement the charge on those traders that use the waste collection. So again, it really is: do we raise fees, or do we keep it the status quo?
Well, given the conversation we just had in the previous item, it sort of rules out at this stage option 3 and 4, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So realistically, we're looking at options 1 and 2. I, for my part, would favour option 1, given the current climate we're in and the difficulties being faced by anybody in business, but particularly any form of retail. Given the current climate, I lean towards option 1, but I'm happy to be steered by colleagues. If I can, Stuart, is that your hand gone up again?
No, I didn't, but I'll comment if now I've got it. I'm happy to keep it as it is because we're so uncertain times at the moment. We just want to keep everybody there.
Fantastic. Okay, and you're looking for this to be a recommendation, David?
Yeah, that's right. We need to formally minute the recommendation.
Well, I'm quite happy to make a proposal where I recommend that we option 1 to keep the fees and additional services charges the same.
I'm happy to second that, Chairman.
Chris, can we do a vote, please?
Yeah, sure. Just doing it
Thank
now,
you.
isn't it? There's only a few of us, so should we just do on the chat? You can do. So this is to agree to keeping the fees exactly as they are. If you just put on there agree, I've got 2 now already. Got Chris Harvey and Terry Jeremy agree. Stuart Wright agree.
I'm agreeing.
I think you'll find that's unanimous, Chris.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you for everyone for that. Have you got everything you need from that item, David?
Yes, I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to move us on to 292/20, which is to receive an update on progress on the Guildhall internal works.
Sorry, Chair, can I just ask another question generally related to the market?
Sorry, yes, of course.
Yeah, that's okay. There was in the paper that we were sent, there was a general update, and there was a bit in there that I just wanted to question on. David touched upon Wetherspoon's use of the Market Square. Obviously, it's been nice all round the last few months, sort of increased outdoor seating for all sorts of pubs and restaurants and that sort of stuff. I suspect that may change when October arrives. I just wonder what the plan is, David, moving forward, whether Wetherspoons will be continuing to have use of the outside space on the market square, or whether that's going to change. Obviously, at the moment, with COVID restrictions changing again recently, I'm sure pubs and stuff sort of processing what they might need to change in relation to that. But yeah, I thought it was an opportune moment to ask what's happening specifically with the market square and Wetherspoons. Forgive me if I'm wrong, that's one of the reasons we have sort of capacity issues on the market, is because you've got the Guildhall works taking place, but also the fenced off area for Wetherspoons.
Yeah, Wetherspoons only actually take the space on a Tuesday because the stalls are that much bigger. For Saturday, they don't find it easy to have an area that they see useful to them, so they don't take it until 4 o'clock after the market finishes. Again, we have just going back to our forward planning for them, we have one that's been set in one of the upcoming months, market improvement. So it could be that we look at how we utilize that space, how we probably offer up space, maybe not in the way it is at the moment, but again, I'd like to see that if we can encourage more food traders, a diverse group of food traders, there could be an area on the paved part down by the water trough where there could be tables and chairs, and you know, we want to try and create that social space. We probably at that point would be also delivering a lower market as well as the main market. So it's something we need to consider, but the reason Wetherspoons are on there is because all retailers through the Brecon District Council Get Back to Work support, we joined that and allowed them to use the market square, as the Royal British Legion do on Saturday, as the Green Dragon were offered. I know it was a little bit more logistically difficult for them, and they have a good garden there. But yeah, it would be nice to think that we could create a nice social space. But again, it's down to further discussions with councillors at maybe a later date. Once the cold weather comes in, I'm sure they won't pursue it. But yeah.
Okay, is that okay, Terry?
Yep, that's fine. Thank you. No, I was just curious what the plan was moving forward, because things will change as autumn approaches.
Brilliant, thank you. So we are on to item 29220, which is the Guildhall internal works. Do you want to take a sip of water, David, before you go again?
No, I'm fine. Yeah, just to give you a quick update, I gave you an update in the report, but this was compiled a few days ago. The guys are still working hard. They're still pushing on. We've set a deadline of Friday, the 25th of September, when we will do our final inspection. Ros and I and the architect. They are very confident that they'll be finished by then, so it will be compiling a snagging list on that day. So we've got a date in the diary for 2 p.m. They have made real strides in terms of the last couple of weeks, but they are literally at this point 4 weeks behind schedule, and we've given them another week and a half. So it will probably be 6 weeks over deadline. Having said that, with the current restrictions, it's not like we were absolutely desperate to throw the doors open, but it's looking good. There's lots of little features, such as if you enter the toilets, they are person triggered lights that come on and they go off as you leave. You know, if nobody else goes in, within 15 seconds the lights go off, so that's a great saving on electricity. So there's little quirky elements like that. They're actually, the last stage is doing the internal ramp, and they are actually working on that as we speak. So I think they're going to hit that deadline of the 25th, and then hopefully councillors can come in and look at the new facility. So if, I don't know whether anybody's got any more questions on that, but I'm happy to answer questions.
So open that out to the floor. Well, no, it seems you can move on, David.
So the second part of that agenda item is redecoration of the corridor and landing. So we've got some quotes in to do the space that is outside the reconfiguration of the toilet. Obviously, by reconfiguring the toilet, we've built new walls, we've created a new servery. The old servery, which is now the disabled toilet, has changed slightly. So it is in need of redecoration to fit in with the overall upgrade. So the costs that you see on this slide is as you come through the front doors, it is the entrance corridor. So you've got double doors to left and right into the large court and small court. You then move on to the single door, which is now going to be a dedicated display cabinet, because that is the mid landing of the internal ramp. Up the 2 steps onto the mid landing where the reconfiguration of the toilets are. So it's that mid landing with 4 doors, 2 going into the ladies and gents toilets, 1 going into the disabled and 1 going into the servery. There's also the door that goes into the council chamber, which we will have our Seek display. And then upstairs, so up the stairways onto the first floor landing, and you've got the huge raft of panel doors that go up to the attic, and then up the final set of steps to the upper landing, which goes into the old art gallery. So that small landing at the top. So that's the area that we're talking about redecorating. And we are looking to redecorate it in the 2 heritage colours that we've gone with in the small court, Guildhall tea room and the council chamber, which are all heritage palette colours to fit in with the grade 2 listing. So the 3 quotes are there, as you see, and we're hoping to get approval for the redecoration to happen fairly quickly after the completion of the internal works. Now I know, I see Terry's put his hand up, but I know you're going to ask me where the money's coming from. I've just this morning received from our contractor an update of the costs that have been incurred to date. They are actually £5,300 down on their initial costs, not inclusive of the contingency that we had of £9,000. So they haven't incurred any of the contingency yet. Are still 5,300 down. I imagine there will be some snagging, etc. We are looking at some of the old glazed areas that are now redundant that used to be in the men's toilets. So we'll probably ask for an upgrade of those. So there'll be some small initial costs, but we have an underspend on the initial cost plus contingency. So we have the money to pay for the redecoration out of that. So I will take a sip of water now and just let.
Terry, do you have another question? Seeing David's preempted your first one.
Yeah, I did have 2 actually, but just on that first one, I think we discussed before that there was likely to be an underspend and therefore there would be some money available to do the painting. So I'm pleased that has been the case. I was worried that given the work's delayed, we don't yet really know the true cost of what the first stage has been, if you get what I mean. But if that's progressed to the extent where we're confident that the money is available, then that clears that one up. The other question I was going to ask was around more sort of finance procedures, really, which is probably finance committee, but just so I'm clear in my own mind, is Company C, David, the company that we've given painting work to previously? I only ask that because we've had numerous rounds of painting which have been done on the free quote basis. If they were all combined, we would have had to have followed a tender procedure rather than a quote, I think. So I just wonder if that's a different company, then that doesn't obviously apply. But if Company C is the same company, then how does that fit with financial regs?
Let me see.
So Company C has undergone some of the work, not all of the work. We have had other companies in to do some of those. But yes, in fact, two of the companies that you see there are companies that have done previous work. We have looked at it because they've come out of different pots, that we've looked at it at different times. The Guildhall Tea Room, for instance, was a completely different pot. So I think we're still okay under financial regs. It wasn't a wholly inclusive project. This is a project that has really dictated redecoration simply because we've done the reconfiguration. If we hadn't have done the reconfiguration of the toilets, I think we probably could have got a couple of years out of the corridor and the landing. In terms of the other rooms, then there is, that's a different kettle of fish. We should really be looking at a maintenance schedule and looking at when we look at reviewing redecoration. In terms of the Carnegie, we decorated some of the areas in the Carnegie 7 years ago, and I wouldn't advocate looking at that for another 3 years, because even though they're high footfall, the job has dictated that we don't need to review it. In terms of the large court, for instance, I think that large court hasn't been redecorated in 15 to 20 years. So that's something we do need to address at a later date. But in this instance, it's a project in itself. So I think we would have looked at it in isolation. So I think we're okay with financial regs.
Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to say, David, how convenient 5,300 being a bit of an underspend. So, potentially you've got the go ahead. I just think we need to do this to finish the job off. The last thing I want to do is to walk into the hallway there and see unpainted pieces of wall that's there. So yes, I think we need to get on and do this. And if we've got the money, let's go and do it. I take on board the idea of a maintenance schedule for the building. It definitely needs to happen. Large court is in desperate need of some decoration there, and hopefully that will come through over the next few months, and how we can finance that is another matter. But I think in the short term we do need to do this, and I would support going with 5360 if we've got the money to do it.
Can I just come in there, Chair, and just reiterate, just as a matter of principle, I have an email from the contractors dated today that actually highlights all the expenditure and also that underspend of 5,300. It's just a coincidence that quote 3 is 5,360. It's not, so it's not a case of, oh, that looks quite handy, that we've at least got the money on an underspend. We've actually got more money through the contingency as well, that we could cover quote 1 if you wish to spend 8,537.
Okay. I'm going to just make. I'm going to be traditional to myself. All the time, I'm struggling with this item because all I've got is 3 figures in front of me, and I think the last time I spoke about this was a refurb of the King's House carpets. We was only spending, we were spending £2,000. I'm struggling with this item because I really am basing I'm being asked to vote and propose an item where I've only got 3 sets of figures, and there's quite a disparity between quote 1 and quote 3. So I'm personally uncomfortable with the level of detail I've got, and I'll leave it everyone to dwell on that, and if anybody else has got any comments. Having not seen the quotes, I find it very difficult to make effectively a blind judgment.
Financial regs mean you can't see the quotes. You can only see them in this format, Mark. This is how we present the quotes. They have been quoted against the same spec, the same brief, the same space, the same area with the same colours. So you couldn't. It's not like a tender process where you open the tenders and actually see the companies and this is below the £10,000 threshold.
Totally get that, David, but as you know, people interpret specifications and tenders. We've looked at some ourselves over the course of the years, and hence the reason you get a disparity in in how people arrive at their pricings. So as I say, it's just a personal comment. It don't come as a surprise to anybody, that I'm making this comment because I've been quite consistent in my time as a town councillor about this level of information. So I'm just putting that comment out there that it's not somewhere where I'm comfortable. I recognise you're correct in what you're saying. Stuart, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just hopefully like to back David in his judgment that he's worked with these contractors before and they've done for us, and there's a trust element that they would deliver what he's asking them to do. But I accept you would like a little more detail, but you go in there, you can see what needs painting, and if they have been given the same spec in terms of paint and finish that's required, I think we can make a decision.
It's a matter of where people sit comfortable. I don't sit comfortable, but ultimately it's a committee decision, and I'm getting the feeling you guys are quite happy to move forward with this. So on that basis, I think you're looking for a proposal, aren't you, David?
Yes, please.
Over to you, committee, because I've stated my position.
Well, I propose we go ahead with quote 3.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll do that. Chris Harvey.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Could we just do the same thing on chat, please, to say agree to quote 3, £5,360, or against, please? So I've got Terry's abstaining, Chris Harvey agree, one's against, so we're all square at the moment.
Yeah.
Stuart's agreed. So that's
I'll agree too.
that's 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 3-4 I've got at the moment. 1 against and 1 abstain.
Thank you. So I think the proposal is to go ahead with
Thank you.
option 3. Is that a recommendation to full council?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for clarifying that, and thank you everyone for that. Can
I just, sorry, Chairman, can I just jump in there?
Please do.
If this was in budget for the VEM committee, correct me if I'm wrong, David or Chris, presumably it's a resolved matter rather than a recommendation to full council.
Yes, I wondered that.
It is a resolved matter because it's within budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
I might have to abstain, but I'll still tell you what the process is.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So moving on, we go to item 293/20, which is our budget review. So we have 2 documents before us: revised forecast budget for 2020-21 and a draft budget for 21-22. You all would have received this in your papers. I don't know if you want to add any additional detail to what we've got in front of us.
No, I've got nothing else to add apart from what's in front of you in your papers. I don't know. I'll take any questions, obviously.
Okay, well, I'm quite happy to open out to the floor. Chris, while I was just waiting for people's hands to go up, I'm just going to make a comment on the document that we received. Can we receive it? I'm talking specifically about the document we've got in front of us at the moment. Very difficult to read when you print it off. It actually comes out with a font size of about 8, possibly 9 at best. So we could it's just a simple housekeeping matter.
Yeah.
That'd be appreciated. It's quite difficult to read, particularly as you get older. For my good self there. I've got Terry with your hands up.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, David. Firstly, the point I make reasonably consistently is around personnel costs related to VEM, and I think we agreed that we would have a sort of a line somewhere, even if it doesn't go into the totals figures, just so that we're aware of the personnel costs related as well, as a sort of a separate row or column, however you want to do it. So that would be really helpful. I noticed that on the income there's a £600 a month for bar takings. I just really wanted to sort of drill down a bit onto the figures, how they've been calculated, because realistically, are there any functions over the next few months between now and the end of the financial year when the bar will be required? And also just on the Carnegie hire, obviously there's a figure there for August and September, and I just wondered if they've proven to be accurate or not. Things are slowly coming back, I appreciate, but if we've got back to 750, that's great. And on the expenditure side, obviously the bar takings, if that is less, I assume the bar purchases will be less, although you might want to comment on this. It must be incredibly difficult at the moment to manage stock and to prevent wastage. It must be a huge challenge with so few functions. How are we managing to sort of tick those things over?
Okay, firstly, I must admit, I agree. I spoke to Alan earlier in the week because Alan presented these figures, and it was a case of, well, you know, we are in a difficult period to forecast anything. And I think with regard to bar takings, we are hoping, or were hoping, to do a couple of events before Christmas with the social distancing restrictions, you know, undertaken, etc. Whether that's going to be able now, I don't know. He just wanted to extrapolate the thing across all months, but it's not accurate. They're not, you know, August and September didn't generate £600 each month, but he, you know, that's the way he presented it. But I did bring that up. In terms of stock management at the moment, we were very lucky when we went into lockdown in March that we manage our stock fairly well. Again, our gross margins reflect that. We do generate a good gross margin, gross profit margin on our bar takings, and that is down to decent stock management. And we were just lucky that we didn't actually lose a lot of stock. We did lose some. We looked at possibly ways that we could probably try and recover cost. It was decided that we wouldn't do that, but it was very minimal. We haven't been in a situation really where, and again, going back to the health and safety, we didn't do the revised COVID stuff around the bar area because there was just no indication of having any bar events. So again, we haven't really purchased any stock. So we were lucky in terms of being in a situation where we didn't lose any, and we've not really been in a situation where we've needed to purchase any because we clearly haven't any events in the pipeline. We had a couple of events that we were thinking about delivering in November, and if that goes ahead, then we might have to be very clever in how we try and purchase stock to do a smaller option bar, so we don't get left with too much stock, because after November it could be another few months before we have another event. So it's very difficult at the moment, but at the moment we're not falling foul of that too badly. Yeah, so that's all I can say on that one.
David, when does we're looking to reopen the Guildhall?
Well, tenders for the external works deadline is the 28th of September. So ALP will be looking at those as their external works in due course. Whoever wins that tender, it's down to whether they can start fairly timely. If we can get them to start before or this side of Christmas, it could be the end of January before they're completed. So I can't see us opening, even if we're able to, and sort of February, March time.
So do we need to remove the budget line under Guildhall Catering up until February?
Yeah, well, Guildhall Catering is one of those funny things that we just merge everything in there, and yeah, it's quite a substantial sum. But again, if we were to open in February, we could probably recover some of that, but not £3,000. So again, we might need to revise that again. But if we can do things in the Carnegie, you see, it's all, you know, we talk about Guildhall Catering, it's not. I think Alan's put in Guildhall, it's catering. So it's on both sides.
Could you, can we get him to adjust the line then? Just so, yeah. And I think, yeah, Terry's right about the personnel line as well. If we can.
I've brought this up in terms of talking to other officers, and staff is within personnel, so it might be something that you need to bring up through personnel as to whether we can have these taken out into, because the decision was made to review and revise that within personnel. So if you want some kind of information, you're probably going to have to go to personnel.
Yeah. I think
it's not something that's done in any other committee, Mark.
No,
So,
I just think though it's useful. It's quite right that the overall personnel budget sits within personnel, but it's useful for every committee chair to have an understanding of the finances as a whole that hit their committees. And staffing is going to be probably the biggest line as a cost across every committee. So yeah, you're right. We need to have that conversation with the personnel.
Yeah, and if it's taken through every committee, then that's fair.
Because I think I remember raising this some years back, because VEM staff often support events, and the cost goes against VEM staff, and it actually should be sitting elsewhere. And I know it's an auditing process, but yeah, it just gives us a better handle on what our spend is, doesn't it?
It's not just VEM, Mark. It's if you look at the works team that come under ALP primarily. I mean, when we're talking about town events, Christmas light switch on, everybody's involved in that. So it's very difficult to get a defined and accurate cost. You can, but yeah, you can talk to the personnel and try and get that actioned.
Well, I think it's personnel and finance, isn't it?
I've got a hands up from Chris Harvey, Chair.
I can see that, Chris. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a matter of course, I've got to go. I'm really sorry. My son has had a relapse from his appendicitis operation, and I've got to rush him down to doctors. Okay.
Chris, speed off with our best wishes.
Good luck. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Chris. Do we have any more comments on the revised budget?
Can I just respond to the conversation there about personnel?
Yes.
I do find it a little bit odd. I mean, if we as a committee have determined that we need certain information to help inform our decision making, in this case, we would. I don't think it should be impacting the totals, i.e. the sort of total budget, that sort of thing. It's merely a separate tab or a separate line telling us the finance information in relation to personnel. I fail to see why we need to formally request that from the personnel committee. That information is out there and it's known, and it should be presented with this budget. You know, that's our decision as a committee, that we want that information. I take the point about staff working, you know, we're a small organisation, staff inevitably work multi-departments, but with them, there are some very specific costs involved in running our venues when it comes to personnel, and it's an indicative cost rather than an absolute. I understand that, but I do think, you know, I'm certainly suggesting as one councillor that information would be useful for me.
Are you happy to respond, David?
Then it needs to come from you, Chair, to make that request, and that's fine. We'll get that information. Yeah, okay. We'll have to have a conversation on how it's presented, because it's not going to be simple. But yeah, we can have that. We can have that conversation.
Okay, I'm quite happy to pick it up, and we can take it up with Alan, can't we? So, okay. Any other comments, colleagues? Okay, would you like to move on to the second bit, which is the first draft budget for 21-22 for our committee?
Again, we had a conversation, the chair and I, about compiling the first draft, and it was difficult. Over the years, we have got some historic data where we can probably forecast more accurately, but again, this year has thrown it completely out. So A lot of these figures trace back to the year before. And again, in sort of consultation with the chair, we decided to be reasonably cautious around that historical data. So bar fees at 34,000 were pretty much the year before this. So again, we know that if we're in normal times, we can hit these kind of figures. But who knows where we're going to be at in April 2021, hopefully back to some kind of normality, I hope. And if we are, then I think we can reasonably hit these figures because we have done so in the past. So it's an accurate forecast in those terms, but it is a forecast budget. So you've got these figures in terms of your pack. So just for the presentation, I'll move on to expenditure. And again, these are all based, bar purchases are relative to bar fees. So if we're forecasting 34,000, we're running at a gross profit margin of 55 to 45%. 45% of that is 15,300, so it's there or thereabouts. And again, the same with catering purchasing. The licensing, entertainment is our statutory licensing, so it's the PRS. So again, if we are looking to develop those kind of events, we can pretty much forecast what we'll be paying in PRS fees and things. So again, it's a fairly accurate forecast. In terms of marketing and comms, if you remember when we were looking at our budget for this year, we did up the marketing and comms to 7,500, so we've retained that going forward. The figure of maintenance and cleaning, now I've introduced this on the back of some councillors' references when we were looking at community committee restructure, and we were talking about certain committees having overall power of maintenance and repairs, and the concerns were around venues that we would not have the control over making the sort of smaller repairs and things, like if we needed to replace a door and things, would we have to go to another committee? So we've introduced this figure, which again is on par with the kind of maintenance and repairs budget that we had 3 or 4 years ago before they got pushed into the overall personnel. So again, it's not something that's not been advocated in the past. But again, I'm open for questions and from the councillors.
Shall we open that up to comments? Terry.
Sorry, I'll shut up at some point. Just wanted to ask a couple of questions about the budget. I don't envy you, David. It's nobody has a crystal ball at the moment. So how on earth any council is going to be able to set a budget this autumn for next year is going to be incredibly difficult because we just don't know what's going to happen. I'm just looking at the events expenses and the marketing and comms expenses. Presumably the marketing strategy that we're going to be talking about on another occasion, that will be costed to some extent, and that's what's helped inform that budget that's there. And similarly with the events ones, there's a draft events program for next year somewhere, and we know we've got that £5,000 that will cost £5,000, or is it done the other way around so that we set the budget of £5,000 for events and then that feeds into an events program at a later date? I'm just wondering how we've arrived at those figures really. But if you are looking at a surplus of 84k on operational costs minus staff costs, then I think that would be amazing. But I do wonder if that's achievable. But if you could explain a bit more about the events and marketing and comms figures, that would be really useful.
I think the 84 is achievable because in the past where we've seen deficits, we have actually, going back to personnel, we have included in our budgets staff costs. And that's what will pull down the 84,000 into a possible deficit, because we've reflected in the past our team costs, our personnel costs. Going back to events, we have as a VEM team, a delegated authority of a maximum spend of £5,000 to develop a programme of venue events. Now, what you've got to remember is this budget is for the restructured committee, if personnel and full council approve that over the forthcoming weeks, that we have lost the town events, but this is for venue events only, and also market square events. So if we're looking at specialist markets or the old night markets being resurrected, it will all come out of this budget. So it may be that we probably, if all things work well, we might not end up having to spend that £5,000 in totality, but it just gives us that seed money to start to put a programme of events on. And yes, there will be an events programme or an ideal events programme as long as we can operate in normal times. And there is a payoff between having too many in-house events, because it will only detract from your opportunities to hire the venues, because there's only so many weekends within the year. So we have to be very careful. But I think that, yeah, we've just kept with the £5,000 that we'd already had in a previous budget.
Stuart, sorry, Terry, you're okay with that? Stuart.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just echo Terry's sentiments, really, Dave. There's no right answer. But at the moment, we just don't know what is happening. So I think you've done the best you can in terms of putting something forward. No doubt this will change quite considerably as what the year pans out. But I think we've probably done as much as we can in terms of setting a budget so that we can go through the motions of doing this. But I don't hold too much with what we've got in front of us, because I know things are going to change. So I'm quite happy to accept what we've got in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any other comments. I think what we might worthwhile, hopefully we'll be out of this situation sooner rather than later, but it'd be worthwhile, maybe given the circumstances, reviewing this in 6 months going forward.
Yeah, I think what we've got to also understand is this is the first draft of the budget process. Traditionally, all committees will discuss this over the forthcoming month. You'll get to a point as a full council to determine what the collective results mean in terms of setting a precept, and we usually get the task of trying to review it again, possibly in November. So this is only the first draft, so there is a little bit more work to do on it, but we just have to sort of start from at some point.
Timely comment, David. Next steps.
Well, next steps are really just trying to review the marketing and comm strategy. Terry's right. With 2 years ago, we didn't actually advocate it for obvious reasons this year, but 2 years ago we upped that from 5,000 to 7,500. So how are we going to spend that additional 2,500? How are we going to spend the 7,500 actually? So again, that will be written into the marketing and comm. So that's the next step. That's pretty much my priority, to get these kind of information out to you in the next 7 days. I think over the next couple of months, certainly by the end of November, when we have to properly approve a forecast budget, we may have some indications of whether we're going into a serious lockdown or a localized lockdown, or, and we might have better ideas of actually knowing or hoping that April 2021, we can actually present the kind of programme that we're all looking forward to in this budget. So I think next steps are really trying to fine tune an events plan and a marketing comm strategy and plan.
And for the budget, because that goes to full council, doesn't it? I believe in November.
Yeah, it goes to full council, but by then every other committee will have looked at their first draft, and then full council will have the decision to make as a collective for the collective ramifications of the budget in terms of precept. So I'm sure we'll be reviewing this in the forthcoming months.
I was going to say, but this needs to come back in October, just before it goes to full council.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from anybody before I close this item out?
Can I just say, in October, Mark, I mean, the good thing about it, the councillors will be able to say, as you have your discussions around all the committee budgets, you know, I see we've upped the marketing comms budget from 5,000 to 7.5, but we'll have a reason to sort of defend that decision, because we'll have an understanding of how we're going to spend it. So, you know, that's the kind of thing we need to do by October, justification.
Well, this is a good start, and we can build upon that conversation in October, and it gives us a chance. I am keen to see the staff costs as well at October, so we can have just a better picture of what we're addressing. But thank you for that, everyone. That was really useful. Item 294/20, which is community engagement, to discuss and agree any consultation on media release required. We do have some ongoing pieces around, you know, promoting our markets, but is there anything anybody else wants to add? Terry?
Sorry, my physical hand moves quicker than the keyboard. I wonder, David, if you've given any thought. I mean, obviously the project at the Guildhall that's been going on is an exciting project, and it's going to make, you know, a big difference to that building. Have you given any thought to some sort of it's not really a launch proposal, because, you know, we're not really sort of throwing the doors open with everything that's going on, but, you know, how we're going to be making the public aware of the fact that this space has been enhanced? I suspect I'll probably just answer my own question, because it probably form part of the marketing and communication strategy. But, you know, I don't think there are many people aware of why there is fencing up around the Guildhall at the moment, and you know, certainly not aware of what's taken place in there. So you might have given that some thought, but I just thought I'd raise that.
We have given it some thought, in as much as we are looking at, well, once the internals are done, we can certainly get some publicity out there and photographs of what we've actually achieved. But there is some secondary consultation. There was some initial consultation of how they would like to utilise the Guildhall if we were to do the refurbishments. We were talking about creating a heritage hub. What does that mean? Again, we want to ask the public of how we can use this new and improved building. So we will go out with a second consultation, but we will go out with a raft of publicity to try and advertise what we've done inside as we conduct the external works as well. And then, yes, we do need to think about a grand launch and some activities to highlight what we've done. But that will probably be in March of next year at the earliest.
Thank you. So, is your hand up, or are you tapping?
No, I'm not up.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move us on to 295/20, which is committee office update.
No, nothing to add on that one.
Thank you. Well, that actually brings us to the close of our meeting. Thank you for a good meeting, everybody. There's been some really good points raised and some good action points coming out of that. Good to see you all. I'm going to close the meeting, and I wish you all to stay safe and well.